So Excalibur is obviously the talk of the town right now with the TECHROT ENCORE update because he now has access to melee arcanes and such with his Exalted Blade, and of course the changes to blend his slash dash mod set with his Exalted Blade. And to be expected, everyone is using Influence, as am I, and of course Chromatic Blade, but I think one of the most unique things about including arcanes is that we can now make Exalted Blade really strong even without Chromatic Blade, just because of the new mods available for the entire set of Exalteds. I really don't like band-aid mods in this game, and I've always felt Chromatic Blade is a little bit of one, not too much, because Exalted Blade has been decent for a long time, even with and without this mod, and before all of the arcane interactions. But now, much like Baruch, we don't actually even need Chromatic Blade to make this thing strong. In today's video, I'm going to show you a variety of builds, some including Chromatic Blade of course, and Influence, others including less augments and different Helminth options to make versatile builds for you guys, all focused around exploring just how good Exalted Blade is right now. But first we do need to quickly cover the obvious, and that being the changes to Exalted Blade and Slash Dash, with all of the regular Exalted weapons and the pseudos now being available to be modded separately. Slash Dash is now combined with Exalted Blade. Previously it was a pseudo and will be modded via your melee weapon, but now whatever mods you put on your Exalted Blade will also be applied to your Slash Dash. A weird interaction does happen with this. If you subsume off your Exalted Blade, you can still mod it, but for some reason the mods don't actually apply to your Slash Dash at all, and it does no damage. However, Slash Dash isn't useless per se. With how strong Exalted Blade is and the fact that Slash Dash uses all of the mods from it, if your Exalted Blade is performing extremely well, then so will Slash Dash. The best way to view his first ability, it's more of a survival tool now. You are invincible during the cast, and they did fix it recently to where you don't actually take damage to your shields or HP, so you also have a shield gate when you come out of it. An Exalted Blade can of course now use melee arcanes, and it has a new heavy attack which sends out a much stronger and really satisfying wave of damage, making this thing way more viable for Tennokai. The new combo system is exceptional on this thing, allowing it to get to 12 times combo multiplier and build up to that combo via the waves that you send out, so it no longer just needs direct hits. Now today's builds, some will be a bit more focused on, I guess, a balance of damage and survivability, some more on survivability, because although Excalibur still has insane levels of room nuking now, and killing enemies does mean you're probably going to survive longer, you can still take large amounts of damage, because all he really has going for him for survivability is an occasional radial blind or a slash dash, but no consistent damage reduction. He's mostly reliant on umbral mods and adaptation, and that really hasn't changed. So to start us off, let's look at a build that is using his base kit. I'm going full umbral with adaptation, and then for even bonus survivability I'm using Arcane Reaper. Arcane Reaper gives you bonus armor and health regen when you kill an enemy with your melee. This is extremely useful on Excalibur. It may be the best survivability arcane if you're going to go the health route on him. Obviously eventually this will get outscaled by enemy damage, but for most steel path content this will keep you alive. Chromatic Blade is of course in here. We're combining this with Arcane Fury and of course the Umbral Intensify Strength, Steel Charge, and then the massive amount of damage we get from Furious Javelin, which is also being affected by Stretch to hit more enemies, getting a bigger buff, and Prime Continuity to extend the duration of that buff as well. I'm also using Naramon on pretty much every one of these setups. This means you don't have to run dexterity on any of your secondary or primary weapons, and this is much easier to build up now due to those waves actually adding to the combo count. Naramon is just going to keep you at that huge combo multiplier for a very long time. As for how I'm modding the Chromatic Blade, with this particular build you can either go Gas, Viral or Blast, and we are rocking Influence, which means I'm using my emissive colour. It's kind of a green, but really this is blue, and this is giving me electricity to proc melee influence on my Exalted Blade. This is of course courtesy of the Chromatic Blade augment. This is a viral version of the setup that I've chosen to use. We've got a lot of crit, we got a nice blend of crit and status, and we're using Discipline's Merit for really frequent heavy attacks. I love Discipline's Merit on any melee setup, but it's particularly fun here just because arguably my favourite thing about the changes is the heavy attacks. Sending out those massive waves is really satisfying. Galvanized Elementalist is in here, but you could throw in Weeping Wounds if you like, but honestly overall status chance isn't going to be as useful if you're using the Chromatic Blade augment because it gives you up to 300% bonus status chance. And on this particular build we are going with Viral. Viral is really versatile overall, but admittedly this is mainly going to be useful on smaller groups or single target enemies versus bigger groups, which we'll get into in a sec. Now for a quick alternative to the non-Helminth setup, we have Eclipse, this, which we are subsuming over slash dash. To be honest, it barely even matters what you subsume over. Slash dash, radial blind, and javelin could all be subsumed over, pretty interchangeable depending on which augments you want to use, but we're using Eclipse to give us a large amount of damage reduction, and the build is absolutely identical to the first one I showed, with the exception being the subsume. This is a far more comfortable setup for Still Path because it is going to take you further, and you don't really need slash dash for anything other than survivability and mobility in the first place. So if you're not too big on it, I'd recommend using Eclipse for much more convenient tanking. Now before we start talking about the removal of Chromatic Blade from a setup and just going with the regular Exalted Blade, I've got to show off the combination of gas. Blast is also viable in this setup, but the idea behind this build is to just do massive amounts of room nuking damage all at once. Building an Exalted Blade for gas and then subsuming Nourish into the setup over my third ability, not only so we get bonus energy, but so we can proc Viral at the same time as that gas and electric with influence. This is already such an insane combo of elements that we're not going to run out of too much damage from not using our third ability with its javelin augment. And I think slash dash and radial blind are much better forms of survivability, so Nourish not being a great survival tool, replacing javelin isn't going to hurt our survivability too much. The build looks mostly the same except we're using surging dash in here, which is also optional. I love this augment. Ash also has a very similar one that grants you a large amount of combo gain. Admittedly, if you're using secondary or primary dexterity for that combo duration, you could remove Naramon from Madurai because this is going to get you a max combo count really quickly. But honestly, if you've got a Former to spare, you could throw Blind Rage in here. The negative efficiency isn't really going to hurt too much because you're not spam casting the third ability because we haven't got the augment in here, and we're using Nourish, so all of that strength from Umbral Intensify and Blind Rage is going to allow you to keep your energy up regardless of being in negative efficiency. And here is the gas version of the Chromatic Blade. It's literally just a change of elements and that's it. You could also build it for Blast. The effects and overall DPS is going to be really similar. I will admit I do prefer running gas or Blast on Excal just because it's much more satisfying than running Viral on Exalted Blade. Previously we would go with something like Viral Heat before Influence was at play, but I just don't think that's the case anymore. And finally we're moving on to a build and setup which is focused around not using Chromatic Blade and also gaining a bit more survivability as well as versatility when we're building. As for the subsume, we're getting rid of slash dash again, but we're replacing it with Warcry. Warcry gives you a large amount of bonus attack speed, reduces enemy armor nearby the initial cast, which isn't really useful. But what is useful is the bonus armor you get during the duration of the ability, and it also has an augment that allows you to sustain its duration each time you get melee kills. What this is doing is giving us bonus armor to help with that lackluster survivability that Excal has, and it's saving us a mod slot on our Exalted Blade so we don't have to run attack speed. There's really only 3 changes this time. First off is the selection of augments. We are using Furious Javelin in here, and then we're using Eternal War instead of Chromatic Blade, so that way we can keep up the duration of our Warcry indefinitely. And we're also going with Growing Power because I like the bonus strength that you can get on your Furious Javelin with this, and the bonus armor due to the increased strength on Eternal War. Now for the really interesting part is how we build our Exalted Blade. We are still running Influence, but because we're not using Chromatic, we can't just rely on our energy color change for the electricity, so we're throwing in Voltaic Strike. A Smite mod is really good because we have IPS back in the equation with no Chromatic. This is going to help massively with our slash procs, and the combination of Weeping Wounds and Galvanized Elementalist is going to help even more with our status chance and proc all of that electricity and slash at the same time. If you're worried about not proccing Viral, you're better off just relying on your companion. I've been using the Nautilus I believe through most of the gameplay. It's going to help massively with grouping and utilizing Influence, but also throwing on a weapon that's going to proc Viral is extremely important. Your overall group damage isn't going to be as explosive as rocking Gas or Blast with Chromatic, but your survivability is overall better due to the armor bonus we get from Warcry. To me, this build just feels like a really nice switch up of constantly using the same augment on Excal, and dare I say it's more useful in some instances where Chromatic won't be, because you can actually proc huge amounts of slash damage with the IPS of regular Exalted Blade. And here's the Nautilus build that I'm using. I'm rocking Seismic Bond in here. This is mainly for efficiency with our Exalted Blade. You can actually get by without this. You don't need this at all from my testing. The KPM is so fast on Excalibur right now, you literally will never run out of energy. I'm not even using Equilibrium or Energize. I have no energy issues with him right now. This isn't even necessary. In all of the footage, I'm actually using Sync Deconstruct, which is completely irrelevant to be using on him without Equilibrium, but this is what I'd recommend in this slot. And here is my Vergless Prime setup, which is proccing Viral and Heat. It's super difficult for me to decide on which one of these builds and setups is my favorite right now. All of them have really minor changes and tweaks between them. The main focus would be on the Helminth choices. Either way, Excal is in a much better spot, mainly just because he got a huge damage buff, to be honest. In reality, he's not too different outside of his DPS, but I think due to that DPS increase, we don't have to focus on Helminth such as Raffle Advance for bonus damage, when we can pump more into survivability to compensate for his lack of. Let me know what kind of setups you guys have been using with Excal right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video as always. Appreciate all support as per usual, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.